The call came through just as I stepped out of the hospital locker room still in my scrubs, my hair damp with sweat from the night shift. Geneva's voice was on speaker warm and clipped like always. Then Marius cut in. My father never lingered on niceties. "Flights are $1,800 each," he said. "If you can't afford it, stay behind." I didn't argue. I didn't ask who had already bought theirs or if anyone thought to include me. I just nodded like I was part of the conversation even though I wasn't. I said okay and smiled faintly, the kind of smile that lets everyone off the hook. It didn't sting, at least not more than usual. I already knew the plan Maui for 8 days. Rhea, Jasper, my parents, business class. Geneva had dropped hints about it for months. God knows we all deserve a break, but never once asked if I could come, only if I could pitch in for extras. I was the extra. I walked down to the parking garage, shoes squeaking against the concrete. That's when my phone buzzed again. An alert from my credit card app. A new charge had gone through 4 business class tickets. $7, $200 total. My name wasn't on the passenger list. I stopped walking. My thumb hovered over the notification as the cold settled in my chest. Caleb Kingston, Jasper Kingston, Geneva Harrow, Marius Harrow, no Celine. They had used my card. Again. I opened the banking app, tapped Dispute All, and locked the account without hesitation. My phone vibrated once more. A message from Rhea. "Why is nothing paid for we're at check-in?" I stared at the text, then typed what you said. I stayed behind. I hit send and slid my phone into my pocket. Then I booked a room in Port Townsend 2 hours north overlooking the bay. Warmer, quieter, not Maui, but mine. The next morning there was a knock at my apartment door. They always said it like a shared truth. It's been a rough year for everyone. Everyone. As if I was included in that circle. As if I hadn't worked 3 back-to-back night shifts last April just to loan Rhea and Jasper $2,500 when Jasper's second startup collapsed. As if I hadn't paid Dad's ER deductible out of pocket when he collapsed in the backyard and refused to go to urgent care because the copay wasn't worth it. I'd sent the payment directly to the hospital. No one ever mentioned it again. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat with a leaky window and no dishwasher. I cooked in bulk froze meals, brought leftovers to work. My idea of a splurge was new compression socks and takeout once a month. But I was the dependable one, the nurse. The one without kids or a mortgage or a husband to run things by, which meant I was always the first they thought of when a bill came due. They said we needed a break. We deserved to fly business class this time. We had earned it. They never asked if I had vacation days left or if I could afford to lose a week's pay. No, they just booked it. 4 seats. None of them mine. I remember exactly where I was when Rhea texted. The ER trauma bay halfway through wiping vomit off a drunk teenager who had tried to swing at me. My back ached. My gloves were sticky. Then came the message, "Family trip, baby." I stared at the screen, every bubble of color making me feel smaller. I replied, "You said I should stay." So I did. No one responded. That night, I clocked out, walked to the bus stop, and stood in the cold, waiting for the last route of the night. I didn't cry. I didn't fume. I just felt hollow. Like all the years of showing up had collapsed inward. Like I had become a building emptied out in silence. The next morning, the knock came again, harder this time. The knock came at 9:06 a.m. Sharp, steady, familiar. My father didn't believe in surprise visits, only interventions. I didn't move from the kitchen. The coffee was still steeping in the French press, and the sunlight was just starting to hit the side of my refrigerator. I watched the door from across the room like it might open itself. He knocked again. "Celine," he called through the wood. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I stood barefoot on the cool tile, listening to the cadence of his frustration. Not angry yet, but teetering on the edge, the kind of knock that comes with expectation with history. He wasn't used to being ignored. I checked the clock. 7 full minutes passed, then silence. When I finally exhaled, it was shaky. Not from fear, from clarity. I picked up my phone and turned it over in my hand. A missed call from Geneva. One voicemail. I played it on speaker as I poured my coffee. "You really hurt your father today?" she said, her voice low, almost tearful. "He flew back early to speak to you. After everything we've done for you." I hit save. Not for guilt, not for nostalgia, for documentation. I had spent years convincing myself it was love, that what I gave was reciprocated, that the silence in return meant gratitude, not neglect. But there it was, as clean as ink on a check. "After everything we've done for you." Not a question. A charge. I filed the message under a new folder on my phone. Boundary evidence. Later that evening, I opened my notes app and typed out every major instance I could remember. Every loan. Every time they forgot to pay me back. Every time I canceled a plan to accommodate theirs. And every time I swallowed the cost like it was just part of being a daughter. By the end of it, I had a list. Long, quiet, precise. The kind of list that deserved a total. I was 22 the first time it happened. Rhea had called me in a panic the week before her engagement party. Something about the dress she ordered arriving in the wrong size, the store refusing to exchange it, the only other option a designer piece she absolutely needed. She didn't have the money yet. Jasper's commission hadn't come through. "It's just a temporary thing," she said. "You work in scrubs. You won't even notice the charge." I handed over my card. I was still in school balancing clinical rotations and part-time shifts at the pediatric urgent care. I told myself it was fine that she'd pay me back when the engagement gifts rolled in. She never did, and I never brought it up. A few years later, Dad called. He wanted to renovate the kitchen before retirement, said it was a smart investment, would raise the house's resale value. He asked me to co-sign a small loan, just a short-term thing, he promised. "It's not even for us," he said. "You'll inherit it one day." They refinanced the house twice after that. The money didn't go to tile or countertops. It went to cover the hole Jasper had burned through his second business attempt. I found out only because a tax notice arrived at my apartment addressed to me, flagged for lien risk. I called Dad. "It's complicated," he said, but it wasn't. It was just a pattern. I had become the fallback plan, the invisible support beam no one saw until I wobbled, the nurse, the unmarried one, the one with a stable income, no dependents, no partner to veto financial decisions, the flexible one, the understanding one. Every favor had started with a compliment. "You're always so reliable, so thoughtful, so responsible." And each time I said yes, they took it as proof I would never say no. By the time I hit 30, I had stopped keeping track of the little things: grocery runs, surprise babysitting subscriptions on my card. They never canceled. It was easier to pretend it didn't matter, until I sat down last week and wrote it all out. The list didn't lie, but if they weren't going to treat me like family, then maybe it was time I stopped paying like one. I sat at my desk with a calculator, a spreadsheet, and a headache that had been building for a decade. First entry, $600, the dress Rhea swore she'd pay back for her engagement party, then $2,500. The loan I wired into their joint account the month Jasper lost his job. $4,800 for business class tickets to Maui. I hadn't booked them, hadn't even been asked. $800 Dad's ER deductible when he refused to go to urgent care because he didn't want to deal with the paperwork. $420 groceries I covered when Mom said she forgot her wallet and then never brought it up again. I added a $150 late fee from the credit card company that hit after they used my card without permission. I didn't round down. I titled the spreadsheet "Outstanding Balances Harrow Family." Then I exported it as a PDF, attached it to a group chat we hadn't used since Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and typed "Reimbursement request for unauthorized charges and past financial support. Full repayment expected within 30 business days. As of July 1st, I will no longer be subsidizing family expenses." I hit send. The silence lasted 90 seconds. Then it began. From Geneva. "Celine, this is hurtful and unnecessary." From Rhea. "Are you serious? What kind of person invoices their own family?" From Dad. "We raised you better than this." That one made me laugh. Not out loud, but inside sharp and clean like a snapped thread. They hadn't raised me. Not in any meaningful way. I had worked through holidays, skipped vacations, sat through lectures on loyalty while covering gaps they left in their own messes. I had been the grown-up since I was old enough to write checks. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I renamed the folder on my desktop. From boundary evidence to accounts closed. Then I turned off my phone, slid the chair back, and opened the window. Outside, someone was knocking again. The message came at 10:14 p.m. I was brushing my teeth, half listening to the hum of traffic outside my window, when my phone buzzed with a notification from an unfamiliar number. The text was short. "Hey, it's Marin. I know this is out of the blue, but I think we should talk. Marin Kingston, Jasper's ex-wife. We hadn't spoken since the divorce 4 years ago. She'd moved to Chicago, started over. Last I heard, she'd passed the bar and was doing well." I stared at the name on my screen, then typed, "About what she didn't waste time." A thumbs up. Then a PDF. "Thought you should see this?" I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity overrode caution. Inside, a detailed breakdown of joint account transfers labeled with Jasper's name, including multiple payments to crypto gambling sites over the last 2 years. Thousands of dollars. Some of it routed through an account in my mother's name. There were emails, too. One from Geneva to Marin. "Please don't report this. We're handling it. Celine doesn't need to know." And another from my father. "We'll pay it back. Don't ruin this for everyone. She's stable. She can afford to help. They knew. They knew everything. The vacations, the sudden renovations, the emergencies. They weren't just bad timing. They were cover. I hadn't just been subsidizing them. I had been laundering their panic, cloaking their recklessness in the illusion of my stability. I messaged Marin back. "Why now?" "Why tell me this?" She responded almost immediately. "Because I should have said something sooner, and because you finally did what I never could walk away. You deserved to know the truth." I sat for a long time with the screen still glowing in my hand. Then I downloaded every file and forwarded them to myself with the subject line, "In case they escalate." I didn't cry. I slept, solid, uninterrupted, for the first time in weeks. The next morning they came back. They came back the next morning. Same knock, same cadence, same silence on the other side of the door. I didn't answer right away. I finished my coffee, folded a dish towel, watched the digital clock on my stove tick forward minute by minute. Then I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My father stood in front, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Geneva held a manila folder like it might shield her. Both of them looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just standing straighter now. I opened the door. Geneva's voice cracked first. "We need to talk." I know I said. "But I don't." Dad stepped forward. "This stunt freezing your card, sending that invoice, it's spiteful, Celine. It's beneath you." "No," I said evenly. "It's honest. You're blowing everything out of proportion," he snapped. "We didn't think it would be an issue. You always help." "Because you trained me to," I said. "You groomed me into being useful, not loved, just available." Geneva blinked, visibly shaken. "We made some mistakes, sure. But you don't have to burn the bridge." I nodded. "I'm not. I'm just not building it alone anymore." Dad stepped forward again. "You think this makes you strong? Turning your back on your own parents?" "No," I said. "But it makes me free." He opened his mouth, but I was already closing the door. Not slammed, just steady. A firm end to a sentence I'd been too afraid to finish. There was no knocking after that. No calls. No texts. For a full day, the quiet felt surgical, sharp, and precise, like something had been cut out of me, but there was no ache. Only space. I spent the evening reading on the couch, my phone face down, my laptop unopened. When I finally climbed into bed, I slept without the weight of what-ifs pressing on my chest. The stillness wasn't absence. It was air. But still, part of me knew it wouldn't last, especially when the text arrived that night. Weeks passed. No one knocked again. No more calls, no new group chats, no accidental voicemails. Just silence. I filled the space with small things, laundry dried by the window soup on the stove, walks around the block that ended when I decided not when someone else called. Then, on a Tuesday, a letter arrived. It was from Rhea. I recognized the looping cursive right away. She'd always had beautiful handwriting, the kind that made apologies look elegant. 5 pages front and back, a delicate mixture of memory revision and vague regret. We all make mistakes. You took it too far. Mom cries every day. You've turned your back on blood. She saved the last line for impact. We're family. That doesn't change. I folded the pages slowly and placed them in the drawer next to Marin's PDFs. 2 days later, another envelope arrived. No return address. Inside a personal check for $770. No sticky note, no explanation. Just numbers and silence. I walked it to my desk and pinned it to the corkboard above my monitor right next to a quote I'd printed on printer paper and cut out with scissors the week before. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I looked at the check again, not with anger, not even sadness, just recognition. It wasn't a gesture of healing. It was a transaction, the closing of a tab they never intended to acknowledge. A final attempt to name their own ending. I didn't cash it. Not yet. That night, I made dinner for myself and actually sat at the table to eat it. No phone in hand, no mind racing. Just a meal I paid for. With money I earned. In peace, I chose. And then Marin called. I cashed the check a week later. Not because I forgave them and not because I needed the money. I cashed it because it no longer held power over me. Then I transferred every cent, $770, to a scholarship fund for nursing students supporting their families while still in school. Someone out there was in the same place I had been. She deserved better. That same week, I met Damon. He worked in dietary at the hospital, soft-spoken with quick eyes and a voice that didn't try to fill silence. He asked thoughtful questions and listened to the answers. On our third conversation, he asked if I liked hiking. I told him I hadn't been in years. Want to go this weekend, he said. And I said yes without checking my bank account, without thinking of who might need me or what I might miss if I finally chose something for myself. We walked along a trail in the Cascades, the sun warm but not overbearing. At the summit, I told him everything, the card, the invoices, the silence I'd mistaken for peace. He didn't look away. He didn't pity me. I'm proud of you, he said. It was the first time someone had said that and meant me not what I could offer. Damon never made me earn his affection. He offered it like it was the easiest thing in the world, like love didn't need repayment. Later that night, as we stood on my porch watching the sky shift from rose to slate, I realized I no longer flinched when good things happened. And then I opened the last envelope. 6 months later, I saw her. It wasn't planned. I was half awake, standing in line at a cafe near the clinic, earbuds and hoodie up, waiting for my espresso when I heard her voice. Celine. I turned, and there she was, Geneva. Smaller somehow, not just in stature, but in presence. As if the air around her didn't hold the same weight it used to. We sat. I let her talk first. She didn't apologize. She just rearranged things, memories, intentions, responsibility. We were trying to keep everything together, she said. We didn't realize how much you were carrying. If we could go back, maybe we'd do some things differently. I listened without reacting. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't fill in her pauses. When she finally asked, "Do you hate us now?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "But I don't owe you anything." Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. She reached into her bag and handed me an envelope. Then she stood up. "I hope you come back to us someday," she said. "I already did," I replied. "To tell you I'm not coming back." She left. I didn't open the envelope right away. I walked home. The wind was sharp but clear. When I reached my building, I took the stairs. At the top, I pulled out my key. Still mine. Still in my pocket. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Then I closed it behind me gently, deliberately, and this time, the lock clicked for me.